book debunks 25 arguments that we commonly hear from racist or people who are racist adjacent to support their racist beliefs. Everything from affirmative action is reverse discrimination to critical race theory is indoctrinating kids to be woke. Um, just all the attacks that people are making about if Donald Trump can't be racist because he has he had a black girlfriend, or he was
Lord.
taking pictures with a famous black celebrity from the past. It's important that we understand that these arguments are gaslighting. And part of what I wanted to do with the book is I wanted to prevent people from being gaslit. So the book actually begins with a quotation from Toni Morrison. And Toni Morrison once said that the function of racism is distraction. That it somebody says that you have no history, so you have to prove that you do. Somebody says you have no art, so you have to prove that you do. Somebody says you have no culture, so you have to dredge that up. And she says, ultimately, it doesn't matter because there will always be one more thing. And when I originally inserted that in the book, I was thinking about this from the literal interpretation of what I read in Toni Morrison's words that racism is a distraction to Black people. It distracts us from doing our work, which is kind of the way it's written in her words. But now that I've had a chance to sort of sit with it after the book has come out, I'm interpreting it a little differently because I think that racism is also a distraction to white people. It allows white
Absolutely.
America primarily to be distracted from the fact that their jobs aren't coming back, that the wages aren't increasing, that they have no health care, that they have or they do have health care that it's unaffordable, that their schools aren't as good as they should be, that they're overburdened by college student loan debt, that the housing is not affordable, and the environment is not being sustained. All those things are being ignored because they want people to focus their attention on other issues, to focus on you and me, focus on the Black and brown people, the Muslims and the immigrants, anyone and everyone except the people who are actually in charge of making the decisions. It makes it easier for them not to do their work, the job they're supposed to be doing as our elected leaders and people in positions of responsibility, is as long as they can deflect attention to racist tropes instead of focusing on the jobs of actually fixing the country and making it better for all of us.
I try and tell people that it's Southern Strategy 2.0. It's forcing you to say, look over there, look over there. I heard I'm not going to say his name, but some BS person on a talk show saying that trans women in sports
Oh,
is the civil rights
oh, come on.
movement for women, for women.
Oh, come on.
I'm like, wait a minute.
Come
There
on.
are less than 1% of trans women in sports.
Right.
That's the civil rights movement? For real? We're talking about women getting paid less. We're
Yeah.
talking about the rates of domestic violence. We're
Right.
talking about your right to privacy in your doctor's office.
Right.
And you want us to believe that it's trans women in sports? That is a look over there tactic. And I
How
tell
many
people,
trans women are there in sports anyway?
there's nothing.
It's
And
like,
also, sports organizations are trying to figure out how this will look, right? We don't need any
exactly.
federal policies for this.
Right.
But they want to convince you. And I tell, white folks, you are also part of this social construct. All of any of us falling for it, we're all impacted by it. So you're absolutely right that, you know, these constructs, they also affect white folks. And like Whoopi Goldberg said to you on The View, if it affects one group, it affects all of us. We're all
Everyone.
being exploited by the rich guy at the top.
Exactly.
By the rich
Yeah,
guy at the
this
top.
this is also a part of the way that they play identity politics. Remember, we talked about this
Exactly.
before, that when Obama was elected, well, actually when he ran for Senate first, that's the first thing. When he ran for Senate back in 2004, they went all the way to Maryland to recruit Alan Keyes to run against him in Illinois, who had no connection to the state of Maryland, but he was Black. When Hillary
What
Clinton,
cover in my book? The
exactly.
Grift, the downward spiral, black Republicans. Yeah.
Exactly. When Hillary Clinton ran for president in 2008 and got 18 million votes, they looked and said, "Oh my God, she's a serious person here. We need to find someone to sort of to compete with that." So they pulled out Sarah Palin from Alaska, of all people, who was not anywhere near as qualified as Hillary Clinton in terms of being able to lead the country or being even president or vice president. Then when Thurgood Marshall retired from the Supreme Court, who did they pick? Clarence Thomas after less
They
than 2
coined the
years on the
anti-Thurgood
federal
Marshall.
bench, who to replace the most legendary black jurist in history, the one who argued the Brown versus Board of Education case and was a U.S. Solicitor General and was a federal judge before he was actually even the Supreme Court justice. Then when, just recently when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, who they picked? They picked Amy Coney Barrett. And in each instance, they deny that they're picking someone because of the demographic group that they fill. They say, oh, we just picked somebody. This randomly happened to pick a black person to fill a black person spot and a woman to fill a woman's spot. But in reality, that's how they play identity politics. And the worst part about it, Clay, is that they're using these people, they're weaponizing these people to attack the very groups that they come from. So they use Clarence Thomas to gut the Voting Rights Act and to give the deciding vote to kill affirmative action. They use Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Amy Coney Barrett's replacement, Amy Coney Barrett, to kill the legacy of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a feminist advocate for women's rights and a lawyer in the 1970s who argued some of the most consequential cases. And then they get Ruth Bader Ginsburg to give the decisive vote, they get Amy Coney Barrett to give the decisive vote to strike down Roe versus Wade. This is the weaponization of all these issues. The last one I want to mention, since you mentioned trans issues, is Caitlyn Jenner. They're platforming Caitlyn Jenner, and here she is, a trans woman, and she's attacking trans women as well. The idea is just so cynical and disgusting that they're taking these people, these tokens, they're tokenizing these people who happen to be unrepresentative of the community and pulling them out to fight against the people in that same community. Not to mention, I don't even want to talk about what Trump did in Harlem yesterday. Was it yesterday or today when he went to that little
he went to a
that
bodega in
bodega?
Harlem.
It was not even really Harlem. It was in Hamilton Heights. It was Harlem
Oh,
adjacent, 138th Street and Broadway, which is, there's not that many black people in that area at all. But he went there to the bodega just to do a quick photo op, as if to show that somehow he has support in the black community. The person he was supposed to meet with there, the bodega owner, wasn't even there, I'm told. But this is Roy Cohn-esque politics that they're playing. This is what they're doing. This is some deep tricks that they're trying to play.
folks who don't know, tell them who Roy Cohen is. For folks who may
Roy
not know,
Cohn he was J. Edgar Hoover's. He worked in the Justice Department, first of all, but he was first known for working with Joseph McCarthy. Joseph McCarthy was this rabid anti-communist in the 1950s who led this Red Scare to try to convince people that
anybody's a
communists were
communist.
infiltrating every
Lena
aspect of
Horne,
government.
Paul Robeson, yeah, they were all
Everybody was a
communists.
communist, exactly. And
But he didn't like
Roy Cohn was the one who was helped spearheading that movement. And Roy Cohn later worked in the Justice Department with FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. And Roy Cohn was a good friend and mentor to Donald Trump. And Roy Cohn, Roger Stone, Lee Atwater, they're all part of that whole sort of Republican operative dirty tricks politics. They're using this thing. This is just like they did last week with Chick-fil-A. They had Trump go to a Chick-fil-A, a staged fake photo op there with some people he bust in for, well, not literally bust in, but metaphorically bust in, who happen to be his supporters and happen to be Republican operatives, to pretend like he actually has black support in the community of Atlanta, which he doesn't. They did the same thing in Harlem. They try to show Trump in Harlem at this bodega to present the idea that somehow he's supported by black people there. But in reality, if he really wanted to go see Harlem, he should have been where I was yesterday. Walk down 125th Street, the center of Harlem. Go talk to Yusef Salaam, the city councilman from Harlem, the one he tried to put in jail and tried to execute when he was
35 years ago
against the Central Park Five in 1989, and has never apologized for. That's what Donald Trump needs to be focused on, not trying to do a photo op to try to convince black people that he has some sort of fake support that he doesn't really have. Maybe he wants to create some more AI generated images next, because clearly they don't have real legitimate black support. They have to create these ops to convince people that they do when they really do not.